Hey everyone, it's Nina. So today's video I'm going to be talking about all things human design, more specifically about the digestion, which mine is indirect light. So I'm going to speak directly to that and my experience and my experimentation with it over the past 2 to 3 years since I've really been into human design. Just to give a quick background, I'm a 4/6 emotional manifester. I'm also a quad right, which Ra really talks about how the variables and the digestion, like it's a little bit more important for those who are quad right. So this is something that I really took to experiment with a lot. And I'm going to share with you guys my, I don't want to say failures, just my learnings, because as a 6 sign, I have tried and I've tried a lot of different things. And so with indirect light, what I have found so far about with 3 years of really playing around with what works best for me is eating a lot lighter during the day, and almost like I'm just snacking the entire day if I feel like I'm hungry or I need some fuel if I'm working out or if I'm moving my body a lot or if I'm learning something or studying a lot. My body asks for a lot more food, and then I eat my heavier meals at night. And so this generally looks like not eating until noon or later, and that's not on purpose. I'm not trying to intermittent fast. I'm not trying to like lose weight or anything like that. It's just more of an intuitive thing. And before human design, I tried like every single, I don't want to say diet under the sun, because I wasn't trying to like lose weight. It was more of like trying to figure out why I was having chronic health issues. And so I was doing vegetarianism, I was doing paleo, I was doing all fruit, I was doing veganism, and lots of other really weird things I'm not going to get into, but I have tried many things to help with, like, to find more consistency within my body. And while I have an open spleen and there's not necessarily there's not meant to be a lot of consistency within my health or like how I'm feeling, that's something that I'm also aware of. But there's less brain fog, there's more energy, there's just a lot more clarity since I have adopted to more of an indirect light eating schedule. So in the past, I was on a schedule, I was working, I had to go into an office. So my food schedules really revolved around that. And also like I was working jobs that were sucking up a lot of my energy as a manifester, and I was required to be on site for, you know, anywhere between 8 to 12 hours a day. And that's just not sustainable for a manifester, and it's not sustainable for someone who's a quad right, who's being forced to focus all the time. And so eating became like this really big distraction for me. And then I would feel really crappy and have brain fog and stuff after I would eat, and I would just feel really lousy all day. And now that I've taken a sabbatical, even with my previous role, I was working a West Coast job while living on the East Coast, so I at least had my mornings to kind of just flow and float as a quad right, which is really healthy. And so now that I haven't been working for a while, I've been taking a bit of a sabbatical or a break from actual work. I've been experimenting a lot more so with indirect light. So like I said, I don't normally eat before noon. If I'm super active in the morning, I might, but I have found that I have less brain fog. If I'm eating bigger meals in the morning or the afternoon, it physically like slows me down. And so I don't know if anyone else who's indirect light has had this experience. I mean, I've experimented with not eating until dinner, and I feel like that can be really turn into like disordered eating. And maybe as I go farther into my experiment, like that is where I will end up. But right now, like the balance for me is eating something really light, whether it's like a smoothie or fruit or juicing, just something really hydrating, because I live in Florida. I mean, just in general, it's good to be hydrated with lots of fruits. And so, and then I also stopped eating meat a couple of years ago. I'm not like against it. I'll eat it every once in a while, but it's just more of me tuning into my body. I would say like what I eat isn't necessarily as important, because I'm experimenting with that right now, because I was traveling in Mexico the last four months, and before that I was eating mostly just fruit to work through some health issues. And when I went to Mexico, it was like I was shifting and making all of these changes, still eating lighter in the morning, but I started playing around with adding different foods back into my diet and noticed that it didn't really make a huge difference. And as I became more aligned with my strategy and my authority, and just became more happier within my own life, and sat in like finding peace as a manifester within my life, that it didn't really matter what I ate. So with that being said, it mattered when I ate. So just snacking throughout the day, eating my bigger meals at night, and like I said, it's not always super consistent, especially being a quad right. I kind of just go with the flow, and I'm really in tune with my body. So it kind of varies from day to day, but I know that it's different for every single person with indirect light, and some people can fast the entire day and then eat at night. That's not where I'm at. I felt like it could really lead to disordered eating, because I was like stuffing my face if I wasn't eating like the entire day, and I was stuffing my face at night, and I just didn't feel like that was very healthy. And then it was like my stomach felt really full, and then I felt uncomfortable, and so just playing around with it is gonna be the best bet for every person. Just like being in the human design experiment kind of like teaches you, is that, you know, you kind of have to figure out for yourself, because every person is so different. Even though we may have the exact same chart, like there are different things that will work for us or work for me, and maybe not work for you. So the only way you'll find out is if you experiment for yourself. But I'm just sharing my experience, because there's really not a lot out there on the variables as far as like personal experiences. And so I wish this was something that someone had spoken a little bit more in detail about as I began learning more about human design. And I'm also a 6 line on the roof, and I know that the variables are a little bit more important, or something to really take into consideration after your Saturn return. And so I've really made this more of a priority to experiment with, just because of that, because I feel like the intake, and not necessarily the type of food that I'm intaking, is gonna actually have an impact on my life and my physical body as I'm going through other deconditioning, or going through my deconditioning journey and working through other things as well. And so that's kind of like the food portion. That's been my journey with the food aspect of digestion. As far as information goes, I've noticed a huge difference, because I am a night owl. I've always known that about myself. I'm not really a morning person. I have forced myself to be that in the past, but now when I try to be on a more scheduled like timeline, being a quad right, and then also being indirect light, where I'm getting up early and doing things in the morning and forcing myself to eat food and all of these things, like my body just literally revolts. And so an example of this would be when I was traveling in Mexico. I was going at my own pace. I was eating when I was hungry, when my body was telling me to. I was eating lighter during the day, and it was all really, really great, and it was working out for me. And the last few weeks I was in Mexico, I decided to go into a Spanish immersion, which meant I stayed at a total stranger's house, and was completely at the mercy of the person I was staying at. But I felt a lot of pressure as like a manifestor, being around a generator. I pulled her chart and did a reading for her, and she had the 15-5 and I have the 5, and that was very disruptive to my own flow, because I kept getting pulled into hers. And then I have an open root, and I felt pressured to eat at the same time as she did, and then she would be confused because I wasn't eating the way that they were eating in their timeline. So it was normal for them to eat a breakfast and then to eat dinner, like their big meal, around 2 or 3. And I tried to make that work the first week, and I finally broke down and was like, I cannot do this. Like, I felt like it was just too much, and I would be sleepy after I'd eat the big meal, and then I would be hungry later on at night, and it just wasn't working out for me. So I was playing around with communicating all of that with her, And it finally kept moving my dinner back to like 6 or 7 p.m. at night, where I would have the bigger meal. But it was confusing to her, and so I felt like this pressure on me that I was like, oh, I was doing something wrong. But honestly, it was just the mechanics of the chart. And so even that honestly didn't work, because I was eating, you know, food that someone else was preparing, and I didn't feel okay about that. And for some reason my body just didn't like that because of the energy that was being put into the food, or other variables. Like she was sitting and watching me eat. Like, it was just a weird situation. So it didn't feel comfortable for me. And for someone who's a quadrate, who's like wants to be in the flow, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna eat when I feel like eating. And I tried to honor that as best as I could when I was there, but it was just like so out of flow for me that it didn't matter like what I ate. It was just like my body wasn't digesting it in the best way possible. And while I was there in that immersion, I was in school from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. And going into it, I was like, okay, this is temporary. Like, I'm just gonna show up and I'm gonna do things their way, and I'm gonna see what happens. And I don't want to say it was a disaster, because it was just like a total experiment for me, but it meant I got up at 6 a.m. to work out, shower, meditate, before the day even began. And then I would wake up in the morning, even though and then I would go downstairs to make a smoothie or eat fruit or whatever I was gonna have for breakfast in the morning. And I felt pressured to eat because I worked out and I wanted some protein, or like I had to eat before the day started. And I was forcing myself to eat early in the morning. And then I automatically started my day off not feeling 100%. And then I went to go learn another language for 6 hours straight, and I'm trying to digest all of this information during the day. And that was another huge thing for me, that I realized that like I just cannot fit the bulk of my studying and my learning during the day. Like, it doesn't stick as much. I felt like I was trying to focus so much, and as a quadrate, that's like the opposite of what you want to do. And so it became a bit of a struggle. And I noticed after I came back from my classes that I would try to study more, and I would just feel really tired, and I didn't feel motivated, and I would just procrastinate until night. And then I'd say, oh, okay, I'm gonna start studying again. And that's when I had my energy, and that's where I felt like I was learning and digesting a lot better. And so there's actually more to the story, and it's very important that I talk about this, because when you're in your experiment long enough and you really start paying attention to your strategy and authority, and you start to really understand yourself and what is best for you, your body understands that on a cellular level. So when you start doing other things, the body can kind of revolt on you a little bit, at least in my experience. So as I was going through this immersion, I tried to do the whole schedule for 6 hours a day and studying, and it just got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's too much. I felt like I was intaking information, but I wasn't digesting it, like literally not digesting it, the information. I was not digesting the food that I was eating, because everything was happening during the day. And then I felt guilty because I wanted to do everything at night, and I wanted to stay up late, and then I wouldn't get enough sleep. And it was just like this terrible cycle. And so finally the 3rd week, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do half days. So I did the half days, and that helped a little bit, but it was still in the morning. It was still when it was light out. And then one morning I woke up just literally throwing up all day. And the message that I got from that was like, you are not digesting anything you are intaking right now. And so that to me was a big sign that I was not in the correct environment. I was not living my life in alignment in a way that was healthy for me, and that it was way, way, way too much. It was way too much information for me to digest. And my body was revolting, and it got sick, and I ended up spending an entire day just in bed and not even going to school, not even intaking anything. And just as a manifester, I was like, okay, like I just need to rest. I've been around a lot of sacral energy at school and the woman that I was staying with, and so I just needed to be alone. And that was also another difficult thing, being around a generator who's like constantly on, and she wants to hang out with me, and I'm like, no, I need rest. And that's like a foreign concept to a generator who never rests. And so the whole situation, there were a lot of different variables involved, but from an indirect light perspective, it was such a great learning experience to be like, okay, it doesn't matter how much I try to force myself to learn or consume information or food during the day, like my body is just not going to digest it in the most efficient or the best way possible. So I ended up leaving after, like, at the end of that 3rd week, because I was just like, this is not a good environment for me. This is not, like, I just needed to take a step back. And even, I would say 1 or 2 weeks later, I'm still trying to digest like everything that I had thrown at myself. And so there's like a recovery period. And just know that, like, as you go deeper into your experiment, it's going to affect you differently because you're listening to your body more. And when you don't, it lets you know. And so that has been my experiment so far, being an indirect light, and just knowing that I'm studying and consuming and actually absorbing information so much better at night. I have more energy at night. I like to work out at night. I don't necessarily like to be in the dark as an indirect light being. I do like to go for walks on the ocean or sit and meditate by the ocean at night. But as far as like being in the dark, maybe some indirect light people like to be in the dark. I don't. I like when it's light out. But I think maybe that's just my open spleen and the fears that come from it, irrational fears that come from it. But I'm curious what everyone else's experience is with indirect light and what you have found. I'm still in my journey. I still feel like I'm fine-tuning what really works for me. But as of right now, where I'm at in my deconditioning journey, 3 years in, eating a lot lighter during the day, snacks, and then eating my larger meals as the sun starts to go down or later, I'm just gonna feel a lot better. And it doesn't mean that I go to bed on a full stomach. I'm normally up a couple of hours after I eat my big meal. Or if I have a snack, like a lighter snack, then I can go to bed like an hour or 2 later. And I feel totally fine in the morning. And I'm not even hungry in the morning, normally when I eat that late anyway. So this is what I found was work best for me. My digestion has greatly improved, along with other types of therapy and deconditioning that I've been doing as well. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video with me sharing about indirect light, and I'd love to hear what your experience is and what you have done that has worked or not worked, or maybe it's different than my experience, and maybe just because I'm a quad right. But yeah, leave a comment below, and if you like this video and you would like to listen to more, don't forget to subscribe. I'll be posting a lot more in the future. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.